Hey, what's up? This is a song by Bob Dylan off an album called Nashville Skyline. It's like a real simple song, but I think it's one of his best because it really speaks from his heart. And I really feel that he's talking about Sarah. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sarah, but Bob Dylan, for a long time was with this woman named Sarah, and he even wrote a song about her called Sad-Eyed Lady from the Lowlands. And I mean, she was kind of like his muse or something like that. But then somewhere along the way, I don't really know why, but they parted. And I think she stayed in his life because they had a child together, or maybe some children together. I'm not real sure about that kind of stuff. I don't look into that aspect of his life. But he definitely wasn't with her anymore, and you could tell the influence, that he wasn't with her because he was so much more happy, you know. Uh, that's the way he would say it. He would say more happy, you know. But he was happier when he was with her, and you could tell because of the kind of music he did and stuff like that. And when she wasn't in his life on a daily basis anymore, you could really tell. I think it's bringing it all back home. She's actually on the cover in the background there. But she is a real person, and she was with Bob Dylan for a long time, and she definitely was one of his biggest inspirations. And if anybody's really, getting into Dylan, and they really are interested in the influence that he had on music, pretty much all the songs he wrote said everything that possibly could ever be said in his lifetime. He was like the Shakespeare of musicians or something because he said everything in one of his songs about every life experience you could ever imagine. I was in this bookstore one time and I saw this book, and it was the complete works of Bob Dylan, and it was that thick. The book was that thick. See, you gotta remember, see, it was that thick. That's how thick the book was. I mean, think about that. That's how many songs he wrote. The book was that thick. Anyway, you have to remember that, even though you know about Bob Dylan, it's like all afterthought and stuff like that because you can just hear about him now. But I was very fortunate to be there when he was actually, happening. In other words, when he did a song, I mean, I heard it the same day that he put it out and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that part of it. I mean, there's a lot of musicians that you guys listen to today and artists that influence you so much. And I say, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I was there when they wrote the song. I mean, the same day that song came out on the radio, I was listening to it. Anyway, but this is one of my favorite songs by him because it's so simple and it's just kind of like a reflection he does. And even though he never says it, I know it's about Sarah. And the original, I believe he did with Johnny Cash, because him and Johnny Cash were really good friends. Johnny Cash was one of the few people that Bob Dylan actually invited into his world. They did a couple albums together. They did some studio work. Johnny Cash featured him on his show and stuff, and that was really rare because Dylan was a very, and still is a very private person, and he wasn't one of the gregarious people that hung around with all the other artists and stuff like that. When he wasn't making music, he pretty much kept to himself, and Johnny Cash was one of the very few people that he invited into his circle. So that's very significant too. The album is very significant. It's called Nashville Skyline. It's a lot different than anything that Bob Dylan did, because it was influenced by Johnny Cash, and it was also influenced by some other artists that he hadn't played with before. He got away from his folky protest type of persona and got a lot more real and honest about his music. Not that his folky protest music wasn't real and honest, it was just a certain genre of music. And he got away from that genre and he did something different completely. And some people liked it, and some people didn't. It's critically acclaimed as one of the best albums he ever did. But as far as how it's received by its fans, that's probably another story. Because a lot of times I do some songs from it on the street, and people say, wow, that's really cool, did you write that? And I go, no, Bob Dylan wrote it. Bob Dylan? I listen to a lot of Dylan, I've never heard that. I said, well, you've never heard Nashville Skyline. You know, it's a very, very different album. And the one thing my friend Arthur pointed out is he said, what do you notice different about this cover of this, Nashville Skyline? And I said, well, it's different, it's kind of country western stuff. He says, no, he says, Bob Dylan's smiling. He says, that's a smile on his face. He says, he never smiles. This is the first album where he's actually smiled. And as far as I know, it might be the only album where he's actually smiled. So that's a big difference too. Anyway, this is a song he wrote called I Threw It All Away. Well, I once had a girl who gave me all of her love. She told me she would always stay. But I was a fool. I treated her cruel. I threw it all away. She used to love me when the morning time came. Then she loved me till the break of day. Ah, but I must have been mad. I never knew what I had. I threw it all away. Love is all there is. It makes the world go round. Love and only love, it can't be denied. No matter what you think about it, you aren't gonna be able to live without it. Take a tip from one that's tried. So if you find someone gives you all of their love, take 'em to your heart. Don't let 'em stray. I don't do what I do. Don't be a fool. Oh, you're gonna throw it all away. Yes, I must have been mad. I never knew what I had. Until I threw it all away. Song by Bob Dylan, Nashville Skyline. I threw